everybody. Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's having a fantastic morning. We're going to give everybody about 30 seconds more to join in. Thanks for everyone for joining today. As always, you had a couple of weeks off and trying to decompress a little bit, deal with a lot of customer service. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about some of that resolution today, what's going on with Florida Blue and some of their infinite wisdoms. We've had quite a few hurdles that we've been dealing with. And, you know, they seem to be getting better. However, it doesn't feel that way in many cases. But the resolutions are coming. They're coming slowly, but they are getting fixed one at a time. So today, as we get into it, you know, definitely type in your questions. Your questions are really important. You know, as we closed open enrollment, I want to, you know, hats off to everybody on the call today. You know, we've done an amazing job with all of the, you know, all of the different puzzles that we've been handed this year and all of the different things that we've had to work through as far as resolutions go. I think everybody did an amazing job, and, you know, really spending a lot of the time in January, you know, dealing with headaches that we should have been selling, and, you know, we will work through it, and we have to continue to, you know, to focus on, you know, fixing things, using those as opportunities to cross-sell and upsell business, and making sure that our clients are in a good place. Now, we have had some difficulties. Those of you that are, you know, uploading documents and getting out into the marketplace to check, you do understand that there are some complications, shall we call it, with the marketplace. It's been running very slowly, timing out in many cases. We've been getting a lot of reports that Microsoft Edge, believe it or not, seems to be working pretty good. So if you're having problems logging in and getting things taken care of because you just can't get into the system through the direct link, you can always access the account through the members account. So we have urged everyone to make sure that they are building a member account on the marketplace, getting your clients in there so that way they have a username and password so they can get their tax documents. They can upload the appropriate documents as well. That way they need them to keep their coverage. So staying on top of that is really our focus, what we've been doing at the agency right now, making sure that everybody's uploaded, everybody's got active coverage, and we're just going through them one by one. So that being said, we know that there are some challenges. We know that we have some people who are maybe stuck in the wrong plan. We're trying to unroll those types of situations. And, you know, they are literally a case-by-case scenario because there are so many different moving pieces going on. You just have to go through them one by one. Now, one of the questions I was asked the other day is I have a client or a group of clients that are showing active on Blue Cross and terminated on the marketplace. So leadership at Florida Blue is saying just ignore that. You know, if they are active on Blue Cross, they have sent that reactivation file back to the marketplace, and therefore the marketplace has not updated their screens. So you may be showing a unactive coverage on that marketplace screen. However, you've got a temp ID card. And now you are going to have to, you know, keep your eye on all of your cases. It's something that you're going to want to be looking regularly at both your commission statements as well as keeping your eye on search accounts, which is, I would say, probably 50 to 60% accurate, so you don't have a lot of accuracy there. But I would definitely make sure that your teams, you know, your leaders, owners are, you know, really diligently looking at your commission statements and watching them to make sure that, you know, what's coming off and what's going on, because there's going to be a lot of turmoil as we get through the next few months. So as we're going through the next few months and you're looking at things, you know, you just want to make sure they're enrolled in the right plan, that the contract number is matching the plan that you enrolled them in. That matches, of course, their temporary identification card, and just making sure that all of these pieces match. There's no other easy way to do it. Unfortunately, there's no, you know, silver bullet to fix this, and it's just really a case-by-case basis. And for those of you that have got thousands of cases like we do, it is, you know, challenging, to say the least. A couple of really good agent service bulletins have come out over the past couple of days. Some of them I want to talk a little bit about together. First, of course, is going to be those people who are having questions about the Affordable Care Act. Is it going away? Is the repeal replace going to happen? When is it going to happen? How is it going to affect me? How is it going to affect my insurance policy? And quite honestly, nobody knows. In our meeting with our staff and our agents yesterday, we talked a lot about it, and one of the big things that if you read and you're looking at all of the different news sites that are out there, not just looking at Facebook, because that's just recipe for disaster, looking at people's opinions, you know how that goes, everybody's got one. This is just the beginning of the crafting of, the legislation to make the changes to the current state of affairs. But, we don't know what's going to happen with the tax penalty. They know they're talking about changing that. We know they're talking about, expansion of Medicaid, but that goes back down to the state level. So there's no reason to get crazy about that right now because this is going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. They're talking about different types of tax credits if you've been, kind of paying attention, and how they pay those tax credits, maybe based upon age as well as income or some formula thereof. What they can agree upon is that they don't agree. And even within the same political parties, they don't agree on these changes that are proposed. So it's not done yet, and it's going to take some time. I think probably the big pressing issue that most of you are feeling and most of you are hearing about is, am I going to have a tax penalty, and am I going to still have a guaranteed issue provision? And then third, what is that third question? Well, what the hell is it going to cost after the changes? And you really don't have those answers. But no one's got those answers. So we're just going to have to keep paying attention, keep on reading, keep on looking at all of the different articles that are coming out from all of the different, media paths and, different correspondents that are out there, and kind of decipher what's going to happen. And it is what it is, right? It's going to happen. Something is going to change. We know that the majority of our clients, either can't afford to have a change. If you take these C variant people and then you want to dump them all into Medicaid, that doesn't always, it's not really a solution. If you're going to take all of these, C variant people and then raise their rate and give them some tax credit at the end of the year, well, that's certainly not going to work either. So we just have to understand that the changes will come. We will be that trusted advisor next year and the year after as these changes happen, and with change comes opportunity. I do think that you're going to see, for those people who are healthy, the people who are not high utilizers, you will see some sort of differences there and maybe some different plans offered to them, especially the people over 400% of the federal poverty level. Some changes there as far as cost and cost structures and what's available, maybe some different types of risk pools or some pseudo type of underwriting if people want to get involved with it. But do understand the guaranteed issue provision for children and for people who are already enrolled will stand. And I know a lot of people have been talking about that and saying, oh, I'm going to lose my plan. And that's just not really the way that it's going to work. They may lose the plan because the cost increases so significantly. But again, we'll have to wait and see. And know that we want to keep everybody involved. We want to make sure that we're pushing the fact that there still is a tax penalty. The IRS just doesn't know if and how they're going to collect it. This was sent out on March 3rd. Hopefully you guys read this. The tax penalty is still in effect, but with all of the different types of tax software that are out there, and those of you that do taxes in your offices are well aware of this already, there's a checkbox in there that says, did I have coverage or did I not have coverage? And you're not required to answer that question. It's sort of like the optional questions in the marketplace application, the are you pregnant kind of question. It's an optional question. You don't have to answer it. You're better off not answering it if you don't want to, but know that the IRS will put some sort of process together to collect or to go through those people who have not checked the box and, verifying that and reconciling both their advanced premium tax credit if received or making sure that they've had that coverage. So all of those rules are still in place. If you're getting people that saying, well, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do these kind of things, know that, the party's over. Open enrollment is complete. We're fishing in a much smaller pond now, and in that smaller pond, we're looking for SEPs. Those SEPs have to be validated. Remember, if they're a move and they didn't have a qualified health plan before, that move is not going to effectuate an SEP. And quite frankly, short-term solutions and things of that nature are a good opportunity for you because you just can't access that SCP as easy as we could in years past. As we look at some other things that came out in the last couple of days, and then I'll get to some of these questions, I want to talk a little bit about the non-pay APO pause. So what has happened, and this is kind of, I don't know, it's just one of those situations where I have my doubts in the data, so I want to preface what I'm going to say because this agent service bulletin, this process that they're doing with the pause of APOs, the problem with that is it's dependent upon the data that has been received and interpreted by the marketplace. So as I preface that, because we know that some of the information that Blue Cross has is different than some of the information that the marketplace represents that they have or they've communicated, that kind of throws a whole pickle into this scenario of what they're doing here. But typically, we run terminations. Well, Florida Blue runs terminations right about now for delinquent pay. So what they're doing is they are pausing those terminations for anyone whose data appears as if they owe money, and they will not terminate those cases. But what they're going to do is they are not going to draft those cases either to avoid drafting the wrong amounts, which we've seen a boatload. So because of that, they have put together, you know, all of these people, and they are trying to stop some of the madness, so to speak. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at the data that they have, look at the last invoice, see if it was paid. If it looks like there's 2 invoices that should be drafted from APO, then they're not going to do it. If it looks like that APO amount is incorrect in how they're formulating that, I can't give you a clear answer because it's about as clear as mud. But at that point, they're also not going to draft that APO. The APO is going to be paused. It's not going to go away. It's still going to sit there, but in the background. So the members that are in this list, we received a list the other day, you know, a potential list, and it wasn't very large. But those people will be taken off of APO for now, given an opportunity to pay or rectify their bill. Now that rectifying of the bill, don't have a lot of time to do that. You know, they only have until the 12th, but then what will happen is those claims will go into a suspension kind of item. Now what will happen at that point is they will have time, and if the April bill is not paid, they will have some more time to get themselves back on APO, get themselves all caught up with the payments, give you some time to resolve those issues, and then claims can get back together. And then when, you know, depending on when that payment is made and the timing of that payment, they will either be put back on APO for the April draft, or we may have to manually set them up for May. And that's all about the timing. And that's what this document says. This document also goes through what the outreach is going to be, so that way you're aware of it. So you've got some talking points with your membership. So if someone's calling and saying, what the hell is going on? Why is Blue Cross calling me? Why did I get this email from Blue Cross about, you know, making a payment? I thought I was on APO. You have to be able to have those talking points, and because the APO was paused. So it's kind of what we're going to have to look at, and, you know, and making sure that we're working with our, you know, our membership to resolve those issues, get them paid, get them accurate, and move on. Now, most of the time, the best way for you to verify what payments are owed is to have your member log into their member account. You know, we all have an agent account, and if you, every one of our customers can go into their member account, and that's where they can see their bills. So you want to urge them all to get into their member account using their contract number, and in that account they could see open invoices. They can see what Blue Cross is thinking that they're owed, or you know, that Blue Cross owes them. We've seen it go back and forth, and we just have to keep our eye on it. That's probably the clearest picture that you're going to get. I know a lot of you are calling agent services, getting frustrated with this because you're getting mixed or wrong information. So you can bypass that by working with your member to get online, get into the Florida Blue site, and see what it shows there from invoice. You'll be able to see what the coverage is, what the member ID is, what the plan is, and making sure that that's matching with your records and what your clients really want. And that's been kind of one of the challenges that we're working through to making sure that everybody's in the right place, in the right plan, and then we can get them all situated. And hopefully this will work in order to get us cleaned up, and that way you can focus on new sales you can put instead of customer service. And really that's because I know a lot of us, that's what we're doing. Let me go to some questions that have come through, and let's talk a little bit about that. If you guys have any other questions about what we're talking about, please, let's kind of talk through it. How do we enroll an SEP prospect into a plan now that Access Blue is closed to enrollment? If they have a true SEP, you should still be able to use the direct link. As I said, there are some issues with the connectivity of that and the marketplace. We've been talking with leadership about that, but you should still be able to complete your enrollments. Now, if there is an SEP that needs to be done and you're not able to access it through IST for some reason, technology or whatever it may be, maybe it's giving you an error, then you can create a member account like we've done a few years ago. Once you create that account, username, password, go in, and then you can, of course, do an SEP at that point. But remember that SEP has to be proven, and you will need appropriate documentation. I think I've answered your next question, Jose. What has Florida Blue done to alleviate the problem of members who signed up for autopay but encountered that their bills were not being paid? If the person had set up their autopay, and they never saw a draft, there's two lines of thinking on that, okay? The first line of thinking is how many payments did they miss? If they set up an autopay in December for a January policy and they didn't pay January, February, or March, and they have missed 3 payments at this point, it is going to be very difficult for you to get that person reinstated, okay? Because if they had told you upon the first draft that they never had the money come out, then at that point in time, you should have addressed that in January or even February, and there probably would have been a much better result in the reissuance of that policy. Now that we're 3 months behind, we've had to open up HIX cases, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, in order to get those resolved. Because sometimes if the customer just didn't pay, they have to have a little bit of ownership, believe it or not, on that money coming out of their account. That's really one of the biggest things. Is that money, they should have been conscious that they paid for their insurance. We had a young lady yesterday who called, and similar to probably what Jose is saying here. She enrolled in a policy, did an APO setup for January 1. This was done in late November. Well, guess what? Her APO did not come out, so therefore she did not pay for January. Okay, they didn't notice. Well, they did not pay for February, and they didn't notice because they didn't go to the doctor until the end of February, which was about a week ago. And when they went to the doctor, unfortunately, well, fortunately for the family, they're pregnant, but she went to her OBGYN, he verified benefits and said, I'm sorry, you don't have any coverage. Well, now the third payment should have come out already. So we had opened up a HIX escalation. The HIX escalation was denied because there was just no payment made. The customer received multiple bills. Blue Cross had the bills. The customer had the bill. They said, well, we just didn't pay it. We thought we were on auto pay. They didn't call their agent. They didn't speak with anyone. Finally, they went to a Blue store the other day before they called us, and the Blue store was, basically told them the same thing we did. We're going to have to fight for this. But again, the customer has to have a little bit of ownership in the game, saying that they paid. And especially you would think with a pregnant wife in the house and children that you would be a little bit more conscious about money coming out for your insurance premiums. It's the little things. Let's see. Client is on Medicare but adopted a 2-year-old. Is the only option kid care? Well, it depends on their income. They can buy an off-marketplace plan. That is an adoption. That's a life event. That would be perfectly acceptable to do so. You could buy off-marketplace. You could buy on-marketplace with a subsidy. Just depends on the income. Remember, if they're under 218% of the federal poverty level, they will go to kid care. It's just Same as it's been all year, no changes on that. What about non-APO plans? I have several off-marketplace clients who never received their paper invoices. Okay, well, if they didn't receive their paper invoices, are you sure they didn't receive an electronic invoice? As we know, most people are not really receiving paper invoices. And again, it goes back to folks knowing that they have to pay for their insurance. So, I mean, we go back to their member account. In their member account on Florida Blue, you'll be able to see all of their invoices. They can print their invoices. They can print their bill and take it to Dollar General or CVS to make the payment. Again, we go back to there is some level of responsibility of the membership that they have to pay for their premiums. I know that that sounds absolutely insane. I mean, with all of the issues that we've had with Blue Cross collecting money, you have to remember that there are roughly, I don't know, close to 800,000 or 900,000 people who are enrolled who don't really have a ton of issues. They're paying for their plans are going fine, everything is hunky-dory. But we've got a small segment, it doesn't feel small, but you know, it is something that we're dealing with. And it's not all Big Bad Blue's fault. And I don't want to sound like corporate because, you know, I'm not, right? But, I mean, we can only lay so much blame on the carrier. We can only lay so much blame on the marketplace. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything anymore. It just seems like the American way. And because of that, who's left in the middle suffering is the member who needs to go to the doctor or needs to do whatever they need to do. They want to use their insurance. I feel bad, personally, for the people who have paid. And then Florida Blue, in their infinite wisdom, sends them back a check and says, no, here's your $2,000 back. By the way, I'm sorry, but you have no coverage. Those are the ones that we're working on resolving, okay? Because if the member made an active attempt to pay and did everything that they were supposed to do or everything that they could have done, we are typically about 99% of the time able to get them resolved. And I'll give you a good example of that, so that way you know that the sky is not falling and we can work through these resolutions. And Gigi has been, you know, working with a lot of you to get stuff resolved, sending them to customer service and leadership, and some of this stuff just doesn't make sense, but we're working through them case by case. Had a young lady who was in an off-marketplace plan. She was canceled off of APO due to the transition in September. She made her payment in September for September and October, and she's off marketplace. Keep that in mind. She ended up in the hospital in December. Well, before she went into the hospital, she mailed in her APO form, but it was incomplete. So Florida Blue did multiple outreaches to her, couldn't get a hold of her, shockingly enough, because she was in the hospital. Decided to terminate her policy. The member was unaware of the termination, did an active selection for 2017. Her 17 policy is fine. But now she's getting letters from her hospitals because the whole time that she was in the hospital, she had no coverage. We had all the appropriate documentation. Blue Cross reinstated her policy for November and December. She was able to pay those premiums, and that way those claims will be paid. But she had documentation. She sent in the APO. She had all that documentation. So we were able to work with those when there was an attempt to pay. But those folks that are just saying, hey, you didn't draft it out of my account, I haven't been paying attention, now I'm terminated, what's going on? Remember that those are going to be more challenging to resolve. Ellen's making a comment that I made before about people getting their paper invoices, and she's saying that her clients won't go online to do it. So then you do it. Do it for them. You can go, if you want to invest that time and they don't want to do what they've got to do, which I understand, some people, my mother's like that. She'd never go online. I'd have to show her how to do it and that whole process. You can create the member account for them. You could go in there, with their permission, of course, and go through that process. So there are ways around it. Our agents do that all the time. We want to see really what's going on with a member account. Unfortunately, we can't trust the search accounts process. We know that we can look for a temporary ID card. most of the agent service reps that you get on the phone these days, if it's a tier 3 or tier 4, they don't have a clear line of sight of everything. So how can you do that? Well, how can you see it? Best way, create a member account, get in there with the member. They're giving you permission to do so. That way you can see what the invoices are, and then I think that will help resolve some of those problems. Good morning, Bill. Bill's got a question. I have an on-marketplace account that is taking Florida Blue over 10 days to have an invoice created to have the client pay their bill. 10 days is not too bad. So I would, the question is how long do we have to wait till an invoice is created? Really depends. So I don't have a perfect answer for that. I know that that's ridiculous, but 10 days should be enough time for them to create an invoice. They've verified that we see the file. So typically I would imagine, Bill, you called. They say, yes, we can see the invoice. We never generated a bill for that member. We've got to generate a bill. 10 days should be ample time. And then I would just follow up with agent service and ask them what they are doing. Now, as Bill is asking that question about the invoice and how long that is going to be and take to be created, we also have to remember that in his situation, if he went into the member account, that invoice is not going to show up because it hasn't been created yet. So that's just one more layer of complexity that you have. Yeah, wonderful. Can you give some suggestions, good morning, Terry, on how to help a client that did pay, Florida Blue sent back the payment, I have all the documentation, and yesterday's agent services said that she's canceled and we could do nothing? Well, yeah, you should definitely send that over to Mr. Falco if you've done everything with reference numbers, but we have to understand why they sent the payment back. Was there more outstanding monies due besides what they sent in? So Terry, you're going to actually have to take it back to 2016 and see, was there a partial invoice paid? And typically, because that person has done everything that they should have, they've paid their invoices, maybe Blue Cross was showing a different amount, or maybe there's something else that's out there. We were just going to have to look through that. They're a new to Blue member, then that should not be an issue in getting that resolved. The only time that would maybe have an issue is if they had 2 policies, or maybe they applied all of their premiums to a dental, if they had dental and medical. But that's something that you could send over to Mr. Falco. Oh, okay, Terry's just adding one little caveat that makes a lot of sense. We did a plan change on 115. So because there was a plan change done, I'm assuming policy went into force on 1/1. You did a plan change on 115. There was probably different premium amounts on there. Or what it sounds like, Terry, they did is that when you did the plan change, the marketplace sent a term but did not send the ad. As we know, there's 834 files that are getting shuffling back and forth, and that's probably what happened with that. So take all of that information, put together all of your documentation with reference numbers, and if you want to send that over to Mr. Falco, we can get it on our customer service sheet or get it over to agent services leadership to get that resolved. That's, those should be able to be fixed by agent service center. And if if you're getting pushback on that, I would not be afraid to ask for an agent service center manager saying, I've got the documentation, here's all the paperwork, this needs to be escalated. And then, of course, the final option is going to be opening up a HICS escalation if they won't do it, and then that'll be our next point that we'll cover right now. So HICS escalation, and what is that? So when you get to a point that you are just throwing your hands up, there's nothing else you can do, Florida Blue won't do anything else, really one of your last lines of defense, besides sending it to Mr. Falco, is going to be opening up a HICS escalation. So if you escalate the case, and what you would have to do is have all proper documentation, like in Terry's case where she did an enrollment, the client paid, she doesn't have an SEP now. So she can't enroll her member for a 4/1 effective date because she's not going to be able to prove it. So we want to make sure that that customer gets their 3-1 or their 2-1 or the 1-1 that they want. And they have to be prepared to pay those back premiums back, right? The money's already gone, so might as well give it back anyway. Now, if they say to you, I want a 4-1, the 4-1's not going to work, because if you call the marketplace, what you're going to do is you're going to have to open up an escalation case, and they call that the Hicks. Now, what that will do is that will give you the opportunity to escalate the case. You will have to call back the marketplace 3 to 4 days later to get the escalation number, and then you can contact agent services, get a reference number for your call that you have opened up an escalation, and give them the number. And then at that point, that communication and that escalation team that works with the marketplace will examine the files that came over, and then they will make a decision, and you'll have to kind of check with them, and the customer will get a letter in the mail about the final result of that. You could also contact agent services to find out status on the escalation and stay involved with that. But that's when you absolutely hit the wall and you're trying to, you've done everything that you can and you can't. If a previous existing member switches his 2006, hold on one second here. Got another question that was a little longer and move my spot. If a previous existing member switches his 2016 Blue Select plan to a 2017 Blue HMO plan, is that considered a new member? No, that is an active renewal. Blue to Blue would be an active renewal. I have a client that lost their 2017 coverage that Blue accepted payments on. Because it was off marketplace, they could not upload the application due to a system error. Benefit package was invalid for the member, county code, Blue Select 1464, everything is correct. They told me for the member to call Blue and change the plan. They did not help her. Peter, we'll have to take that offline because that's not really making a ton of sense for me. If it's an off-marketplace plan, then that should have been able to be resolved. And, we've done quite a bit of business in Pinellas County, and we really didn't see that benefit package not being loaded, so I don't know if it's a validity or whatever it is. We're going to have to take that offline. Child was on his own individual plan in 2016. We added him to his dad's plan for 17 and received confirmation from agent services that the coverage was canceled. Now billing is all messed up because the old account was never actually canceled. Sounds about right. And they're continuing to bill the bank listed on the old account. And now Florida Blue is about to cancel the combined adult and child account. Seen that happen many a times due to non-payment, even though EFT was set up. Agent Service Center keeps on sending me back and forth. We've seen a multitude of those. Taking that member off of APO. One of the things I'm just not reading in here is that, so the billing is messed up. They're billing the bank account listed on the old account, but where is that money going? It's got to be going to one policy or another. And they typically are not going to move the money from one policy to another. So, if they're paying the child's plan, then they, and they're putting the money towards the child's plan and dad and kid's plan is not being paid, where's that other money? Obviously, there's probably some difference in premium there. And where they're applying that money is that's the conversation you need to have with agent services. So they keep on sending you back and forth to where is what I don't really understand. So I would take that a little bit further, contacting agent services, again, asking for a supervisor to review it, because where is this money going? Where are you applying this money? They're getting drafted. They've got receipts for it. And also be conscious of those amounts, and that is important. Now, depending on the cost of the insurance, again, you can go into the member account, and there will be a member account there for the child as well as the dad in this scenario that Sarah's got, and see what the invoice shows there. Pay the invoice right there, because if you're paying it through the member account, then it is getting applied to the correct policy 95% of the time. All right, so lots of moving pieces. Gets a little confusing, I'm sure. So really at this point, we're just going to have to keep on working through it case by case. I know that several of you have, sent over different, more complicated cases that we're working through, and we will do everything to resolve them. Medicare, we've identified, and I would say anyone on the call that sells Medicare, you want to look at any SEPs that you did for a carrier exit that were done after open enrollment. Let me say that again slow. Anyone who has written Medicare SEPs for carrier exit or loss of coverage after open enrollment, I would look at every single one of them. I would check them, make sure they're enrolled, make sure that it's correct. We've identified a few that have not been enrolled, and Florida Blue is going through and reviewing them, but you need to contact agent services and make sure that they're enrolled and they're all set up. What has happened is I guess there was a glitch in the system sending to CMS, and those SEPs were not looked at as a valid enrollment mechanism. Huh, go figure. It's always something, right? But that typically with the Medicare, what we're seeing, we are seeing some CTMs roll in due to misinformation on, formulary or misinformation on the online provider directory. Nothing that's too crazy. I don't know if anybody's getting any, pushback or getting anything like that that they'd like to talk about on the Medicare forefront. All right. So do we have any other questions for the day? So now that we're back into our Thursday meeting modes, we will definitely be communicating with everyone, as much as we possibly can about any of these negatively impacted members, making sure that everybody's set up, making sure that you guys are, knowing what's going on, so that way everybody can feel comfortable. I would definitely tell you probably the best thing for everybody to do is, as you're looking at it, is really monitor your compensation statements as a agency owner as close as you can. Make sure that you're talking with all of your members, your agents, and making sure that those agents are also, looking at that and making sure that was it a renewal, was it paid as a renewal, was it a new piece of business, was it paid as a new piece of business. And looking at that, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion over the next few months, and you just want to make sure you're keeping your eye on the ball there. Really, really important. Okay? Well, with that, if I don't have any other questions, I'm going to let everybody go today. I want to thank everybody for their time and investment of their morning. I'll talk to you all next week. Have a great day. Thanks.